I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to begin with a moment of silence, please. Roll call. I'll start with Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Commissioner Shimke.
Here.
Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
And Commissioner Cos.
Here.
All right, all commissioners are present. Okay. We don't have any public comment on the agenda items. We have a public comment at the end of the meeting. Do we have any administrative business this time, Mr. Lawford?
I do not have anything right now. I will ask for an executive session at the end of the meeting for non-elected personnel. Just give an update.
Okay. All right.
Mark, I would like to make note, if you didn't know, that last week ran incredibly smooth without you here.
Well, I would like to make note that I did watch the video, the meeting, and I don't know if I agree with that statement.
I was going to say, what meeting were you at?
Doug, should we move the end public comment up ahead of the executive session?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll do that. Okay. All right, then we'll go on to the consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look at all the items on the consent agenda? Is there anything that needs pulled off and voted on separately?
Commissioner Cobb, please move the check registry from the consent agenda.
Okay.
I move that we accept the consent agenda minus the check registry.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda minus the check registry? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cobb votes aye.
Okay.
And I move that we accept the check registry part of the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and second on the check registry. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cobb abstain.
Okay. All right, we're ready for the consider the lease agreement with Fairmount Township. Mr. Miller, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Commissioners?
Morning, sir.
Great.
Commissioners, I'm here today with the lease agreement. The Fairmont Township Board has sent a certified letter to us stating that they were canceling the current lease agreement. They did forward a new lease agreement to us. David, myself, and Mark have reviewed it. We did recommend several changes in it before it has come back to the board for you. We did make some amendments that would make it more optimal for us to financially plan for the lease agreement payments, meaning there's 180 days now that if they are going to change the lease agreement, want to negotiate any sort of, they have to do that 180 days before it's out. So that would give us time during the budgetary process to be able to process that and do any sort of negotiations on the lease agreement. It is a 1-year agreement that automatically, if not 180 days on either side, is making those changes. So I would answer or entertain any questions. This is budgeted. We did put it into the budget, in the approved budget for this amount for next year, and it gives us the opportunity, as we're moving forward, to make any changes that are necessary.
With the base area growing like it is, do you see that we're going to have a need for a building in the next 5 years or so?
That's unknown, Commissioner. I mean, we have to look at that on a kind of a year-to-year basis on where the growth patterns are and where the needs are currently. There's 2 ambulances and a lieutenant in the south end of the county. We're at full staffing. Currently at Station 2, which is the Tonganoxie station, we did make those additions to put additional ambulances or equipment down at that station if needed for growth. So it's hard to tell, but that would be my first recommendation if we were going to do that, we would add a truck to Station 2.
Okay.
And then that truck can move back and forth and backfill as necessary without having to add that overhead right off the bat with the building.
Okay, well, I guess my concern would be is the fire department going to grow, and then maybe we don't have this option to lease a space, I think is more my concern with the...
The relationship currently is a good working relationship. I think they like the EMS in with their facility at the moment. We do some training with them. We offer training with them as well. They have made no indication to me, and I don't believe they did to David either during the process of going through this, that there's any indication that we're going to be removed. Obviously,
Right.
This is in good faith that they're putting forth the contract. The big was obviously we're using things, and they look to needing rent or wanting rent for us to be in that facility. But they have made no indication to myself or my administration that they're going to be looking at in the next 3 to 5 years of lack of better terms, kicking us out.
Right. No, it's a perfect location for an ambulance to be with fire department on first responder stuff and stuff.
It's a good working relationship.
It's a great location right downtown, and just, they're going to probably have some growing pains too there, and their footprint's kind of limited to what they can do as far as building on, but maybe the growth will slow down in the future, but right now Baser's growing pretty rapidly. So, anybody have any questions on the lease? Any concerns?
I think we went through most of it in the work session we had. So.
Right.
Sorry.
I said I think we addressed most of it in the work session we had. Yeah.
Then I'll entertain a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the lease agreement with Fairmount Township Fire Board.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the lease agreement? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cost votes aye.
Might add, we could not build a building for what this lease payment is. So it's a good working relationship.
I have a question for you before you leave. How much is it if a person wants to get how much does the county pay for a COVID-19 test? Or how much, do you know the actual cost of one of those tests?
The COVID testing that we're doing through the state and following the state testing guidelines, we're getting that testing through the declaration and everything else. So the state is providing the swab and everything else, and they're running the test at the state lab. We're just swabbing.
Okay.
If somebody's doing it at a private, like we have the KU contract, it's about $120 ish per test.
And we're doing a little research into that. That's how much, how much an influenza test would cost?
I don't have those numbers in front of me.
But is it significantly less?
For an influenza test?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure it is. But it's also done completely different, and the reagents costs are completely different as well.
Yeah. I just.
So an antigen test that some of the people are doing out there still requires a PCR test to be done to confirm that the actual infection is active at that moment. So we have individuals that go and do a rapid test, which is similar to the influenza test, which is just an antigen testing to see if they have IgG happening, which is the body's initial response to live infection. Then you have to perform a PCR test to confirm that antigen test is real, because again, those tests that are being run on an antigen are also only under the emergency operation of the FDA currently, and there's about a 60% fail rate also on false negatives. So we run a PCR test to also confirm that antigen test.
Okay. Yeah, we were just talking about the more tests of the population in the county, the lower your we want to get that positivity rate down if that's accurate. So,
Yeah, I think we're all in favor of, again, the test costing nothing to the county, or the test costing nothing to.
Additional testing done. We're running all through the month of August. We ran over 800 tests a week. So again, we're above the testing rate of what the state is recommending, even for that sampling. And what's really good about what we're doing in our testing is we're testing those off of cases that we know are positive. So we're having the contact trace, so we know what that spread is off of that contact as well. So it's really telling us a good sampling is great, but sampling tells me what happened on today.
Right. So I was going a little bit different angle. So the test to a resident with the county health office is zero, and the cost from the state to us, because they're providing us with the test, is zero.
Right.
That's all great. The tests seem to be, or they have been evolving. Sounds like we're still doing. I don't want to call it the original, right? But there's been a number of iterations of tests. So I was just curious if the state has made any inclination that they might go a different direction with the type of test, and also the type of test also dictates maybe how long it might take to get the results back, right?
Sure. And we're averaging back from the state within 48 to 72 hours.
Right.
Is really
So
where
3 days.
we're getting our results back.
are we going?
The test that most people are saying, the rapid and everything else, those are those rapid tests again, which is antigen testing. And yes, you can get those back in an hour, you can get them back in 10 minutes. Just depends on what model you're using, what device you're using that's out there. The problem is again, that is an antigen test, that is not a PCR test for confirmation, if you will, for the actual, is that individual having live virus, and are they really at that moment having the ability to spread the virus in our community? And that's where PCR testing comes in. Is it perfect? It's not perfect, but that is still the gold standard. There's saliva tests, there's lab draws, there's all sorts. I think we're getting, I understand what you're asking to do or wanting to do, but that's a double-edged sword. The more that you run tests, the more we're also going to find people that are out there that are asymptomatic and they're going to test positive. You're going to have positivity rate that's still going to be coming in on that. And again, you're going to spend money to see what happens on that day. The only way to continue that, again, is you're going to continue to spend money for testing and keep doing that sampling. Johnson County has ran into that same philosophy as and look where their numbers are at. They do those and they produce, they're well into 100,000 tests that they've done down in Johnson County, and they're in the red.
So, but we're, I've done some research on this the last few days, but symptomatic testing is what we're basically doing. And some counties are moving to asymptomatic testing.
We do asymptomatic testing as well.
And if you could get that. Now, the number 5%, which we have this matrix for the schools, the red, yellow, green, where did that determination for the 5% come from?
That's the guidelines that have come out from CDC, Children's Mercy, several different entities. That's a national matrix, if you will, that has come out in the guidance. I looked at the state matrix. State matrix had 4 colors. The Kansas City Metro had 3 colors. And we did a combine after meeting with superintendents and such to make it simplistic and not have all these different, we're all over the place and doing. We went with 3 colors, and I combined using the numbers out of the Kansas City Metro as well as some of the state that aligned it all to where Leavenworth County's numbers. So if we're yellow, it mirrors, and we're in yellow with all of those numbers. If you took our numbers right now and mirrored them 100% to the state numbers, we're like yellow, orange, yellow, green. So it was all over, and it was very difficult to understand and where are we at, what are we doing, and why is one number pushing us over to this higher verse. We should be looking at all of it, and realistically, it's what is our caseload? Are we handling our caseload? What is our hospitalization? Some of that's in there. What are deaths? What is our positive percentage? And again, we are holding very steady right at the moment. We have a little bit of an uptake and a little bit of an up curve in the positive percentage, but our total number of cases, especially total number of cases per 100,000, has really, it's actually declined slightly. So when you look at all of it and how we're trying to mirror and match, we're dead center in the yellow right now. It would take a lot of cases, testing, weeks, and everything else, and the caseload to really move to get us down into that 5% roll. And again, with schools just starting everything else, we're going to have cases. We're putting a lot of kids and a lot of people back into, and one of the big fears is when you start testing asymptomology, you're going to get positive, then you're going to get the runoff of all those contacts, and you start those contacts, and it will roll. I've watched it happen over the. We're testing asymptomatic patients in the contact tracing. We're trying to figure out if there's one and there's 10 contacts, and we test those 10 contacts, how many of those have become positive based off of that one positive? That's really what we're looking at. What is that spread rate?
I guess we just want the most accurate numbers, and
Absolutely.
and if the accurate numbers show that we're in the green, we want the schools to be able to respond in that way.
Why wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's been mine all along, is let's get schools open, let's try to get schools open, but again, we have to do it, as I've told school boards and superintendents, we also have to do it in the safest way possible and making sure that the decisions that I make and we make as the school boards and the superintendent, that we're understanding where we're at currently in our population here in Leavenworth County. And we're in way better than a lot of Kansas City Metro.
And Jamie, that all makes perfect sense. And again, you and your team have done a phenomenal job. I think, Mike, to your point is that at no point, either counties or municipalities, have we truly done what I'll call a generic type. I mean, it's generally symptomatic followed by tracing, which may be asymptomatic, but it's not exactly a true sampling of 100 individuals with no contact or interaction with one another. So there are, as everyone's learned, lots of different ways to play with numbers over the course of a pandemic.
And again, you can look at models. Johnson County did it. They spent $1 million in testing, and they're still in the red. So that $1 million was spent early on to figure out where they have asymptomology and such. And again, it's a test in time. So it's a test to show you on a day. It's not going to tell you a week from now or 2 weeks from now how many cases. It tells you at that moment. So
You'd almost have to have a system set up to where you would be doing it every couple of weeks, or
it's a moving target. The test is humans, and humans are going. The virus is going to do what the virus is going to do, and the virus is going to move around. All I'm cautioning is, you can spend all the money in the world, but will it truly change your number at the end of the day in 2 weeks or 4 weeks?
And we don't, and we just don't know.
It may not. So I don't know if that's money well spent. Where we are getting a good sample, and we're showing where we're at right at the moment, and we're right hovering in. We're not having, huge uptakes and spikes in our numbers. That tells me that we're sampling and we're doing a lot off the cases that we know. If you go looking and overturn every rock, you're going to find a lot of cases. You're right. But your number can also go the other way, and you shut schools down.
How many tests are you guys averaging again, Jamie, each week?
I'm sorry?
How many tests a week did you say you guys were averaging?
In the month of August, every week we ran on average about over 800, and that's with private and us. We're running about the 75% at the health department through that, and then the other 25 is coming from private lab.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thanks, Jamie.
Mr. Cos.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to compliment Jamie on the work he has done with all of the school districts and the private schools and the University of St. Mary, because the feedback I've received has been so positive in your accessibility and the work that you've done with them to get these schools open. So I just want to thank you.
Absolutely.
I agree,
Thanks.
absolutely. I just want to know when he sleeps.
And
I don't.
I figured he did.
we'll let you out.
Yeah.
Jamie,
You got a key?
Jamie, just go around. Becky will let you in.
All right. We ready for Mr. Knoll? How are you today, Bill?
Good. How are you guys?
Great.
We've got 2 agenda items here today to discuss. I'll try to project better. Last week they said you couldn't hear me on the microphone at all.
Microphone wasn't working right.
The microphone wasn't working correctly. The first we have is a board action item is for the purchase of 4 replacement dump trucks with snow plows and salt spreaders. We received multiple bids on this. The 2020 replacement schedule calls for 2 trucks, and the 2021 replacement schedule calls for 2 trucks. According to these manufacturing companies, a lot of parts were delayed due to COVID, and they do not have anticipated deliveries for 8 to 11 months on a lot of these vehicles. And so, for that reason, we decided to bid all 4 at once because we will not be receiving the ones that we were anticipating purchasing this year until next year. And so this allows us to get a couple of them delivered to get set up for our snowplow systems now, and also provides us access to the 2 trucks that we are going to replace next year. So it is following the schedule, albeit buying 4 at once, but if not, we would always be 1 cycle behind on our replacement schedule. And we thought there was an opportunity to possibly save a little bit of money by purchasing more quantity than was initially anticipated. We did look at the specifications pretty closely. I believe that from all of our correspondence and going through them, that the low bid did meet the specifications and was the equivalent of the other bidders on the project. We do make a recommendation of approval for Truck Center Companies for the replacement of 4 trucks and an anti-ice tank and the addition of a demolition bed. I would entertain any questions that you guys may have regarding the process of 4 instead of 2 or the specifications as best as possible.
I don't have any. We've got a long-term relationship with this company on buying dump trucks, and we've had good luck all the way through. Never had any issues with the company.
Can't get them through our enterprise fleet leasing, so it is what it is, I guess.
All right. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the dump truck replacements.
I'll make a motion to approve the low bid by Truck Center Companies for the replacement of 4 dump trucks and an anti-ice tank.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right.
Commissioner Powell votes aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Second agenda item, last Wednesday we did hold a selection committee hearing. We had solicited for 6 contractors for construction engineering services on Eisenhower Road. We did receive proposals from 2 of those contractors. We did look at those proposals for qualifications to verify that they met the qualifications set forth in KDOT specifications. Both firms were pre-qualified by KDOT to do KDOT inspection work for construction engineering. We did a cost analysis of the 2 contractors that I have attached to the board action item here today. The estimates from MHS were $54,000 less expensive if you took the equivalent time range of the 2 proposals. They took very different approaches in their proposals. One took the minimum amount of hours that could be possibly accounted for on the project. The project does last 57 weeks, and they accounted for just a simple 57-week, 40-hour work week, while MHS, in their proposal, accounted for 750 additional hours of construction because they looked at how many working days there were in the 57 weeks and what the anticipated schedule would be. Most contractors are not going to work a 40-hour work week. So we took those numbers and compared their hourly rates. Their hourly rates were relatively close, at $80.48 an hour and $85.65 an hour. The main difference in where we see a 14% cost savings with equivalent services is in the testing. MHS does in-house testing, where Trans Systems proposal, albeit not articulated within that proposal, but evident from their price breakdown, must be contracted through a subcontracted company. And so our recommendation for the Eisenhower project is to select MHS for the construction engineering services for the project. And I'll take any questions you may have or comments before we move forward here.
Anyone have any questions, Mr. Knoll?
I was on the selection committee, so I'm pretty caught up.
Yeah. I've worked with this company many years. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the selection committee recommendation for Eisenhower Road construction inspection services to McAfee Henderson Solutions, MHS.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Todd votes aye.
All right. Thank you.
All right, we will be bringing back for you a contract
Okay.
in the coming weeks. As you guys may be aware, we did put the bids out for Eisenhower on Friday and send those to an extensive contractor list, and have already received correspondence back from at least 6 contractors who are interested in the project. So we're hopeful that we have some competitive bidding. That bid will open October 4th. So
October 4th, the bid
we
opening.
will keep you
Okay.
updated in the process. If you have any questions.
I didn't have any questions, but I just wanted to compliment you, Mr. Knoll, for your department's quick response to the various and sundry road issues that have come up within the 5th District in the last number of weeks, and it is very appreciated, and it's being noticed that the department is very reactive. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Ditto that.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah.
There's a couple road issues in my district that you guys took care of really fast and did a good job. Millwood Road Bridge, is it still on schedule?
Millwood Road Bridge is actually gaining back some time on their schedule currently. They were able to do an early break of the concrete last week, which allowed them to start to set the trusses across the bridge. As far as I'm aware, I haven't been out there today, but they were setting the trusses yesterday and today, so I planned on making a quick trip out there to see. But by the end of the day today, if they were able to get it done in their time frame, the trusses should all be sitting across the Stranger Creek. So that'll be a major change in the look of the project, because now we have the trusses. So that they caught back up almost 2 weeks on their schedule. They're not back to their original schedule, but they are gaining time on that original schedule, and still are anticipating a completion before December 3rd's deadline. So I think we're
Oh, wow.
making some time back up. They did a good job of, once they got past the footings, that rock there, according to them, was the hardest rock that they'd ever had to chisel through, and they had to go 2.5 feet deep into it to hold the bridge in place. And so it did take them a substantial amount of time. It took them 32 days on the first one. That's kind of where the concern of the scheduling came into place, because it was scheduled for 14 and took 32. So the second time they worked much longer hours and were able to get it knocked out a little bit faster. So, and then they did some early breaks on some concrete, which allowed them to then move forward with different phases because they passed their testing certifications. So they're gaining back some time.
Cool beans.
So I think it's good news.
Might be able to do a ribbon cutting in warm weather yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Hopefully.
want some good asphalt.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks, Bill.
Did you receive any response from Ms. Peters at the KDOT on the 158th and K32 stoplight study? Did
I have
she?
not received any response email from her at this time.
Okay.
So I will reach back out to her. We do have her direct phone number. I was hopeful that she would respond via email, since there was quite a few people copied on that email that went out. but
Yeah.
she has not responded in any way at this time.
Okay,
But
thanks.
yep.
Have a good one.
Have a good day, Mr. Bill. No.
Thank you.
All right. We are ready for planning and zoning. How are you today, Crystal?
Well, Mr. Chairman, how are you?
As far as I know, okay. Haven't been tested.
Till now.
I'm sorry about that. Alrighty. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I have before you update on Building Codes Committee. And as you know, we have convened a committee about 9 months ago. That committee brought forth a recommendation that stated that they felt that building codes were important for Leavenworth County. We have moved forward with that recommendation to bring forth building codes in Leavenworth County. I've worked extensively with not only the Building Codes Committee, but also Hal at the City of Leavenworth. I cannot thank him enough for the amount of help that he has provided me over the last several months. With that being said, the committee and myself have come to the conclusion that the recommendation of the 2006 International Residential Code and International Building Code would be the best place to start for Leavenworth County, and that's for a couple of different reasons. The first is that the ease of implementation of it. This is something that builders should be very familiar with. It's not like we're coming out of the gate with the 2018 codes that have lots of updates and such, specifically updates as far as environmental sustainability and such goes, like making sure that you're not letting any heat out of your home or anything. 2006 has those items in there, but they're not quite as extreme as they are in some of the newer editions. In fact, from talking with some of the building code administrators throughout the county and in the metro, one of the things that they have done is they have adopted the later codes, like the 2018 codes, is they have reverted back to previous sections in 2006 and 2013 on the environmental side of it, because some of those codes are just, I don't want to say they're completely unattainable, but they're difficult to attain. So that is why we are recommending the 2006. If the board would like to move forward with the adoption of these, then we have a couple of next steps. The first is that you would need to direct me to prepare a resolution, which I would be more than happy to do. We will need to set a public hearing. I've recommended October 21st as the public hearing date. That would give us plenty of time to put the notice in the newspaper, which will be required because it is a public hearing, and to prepare the resolution, of course. We will also need to establish a board of appeals. The City of Leavenworth has a 5-member board. Hal has stated that this works very, very well. His recommendation is that we have an architect on board, 3 active tradespersons, and then a citizen at large. I don't believe we would have any difficulty at all obtaining 5 qualified individuals to sit on this board. But it is very important that we have a place for builders to go in the event that they do appeal something. Some things can be appealed at the administrative level, and the administrator can, of course, make the decision on whether or not to allow that. However, some bigger items would function very similarly to a Board of Zoning Appeals. So that is our recommendation, to adopt the 2006 codes, which would cover single-family residential, and it would also cover commercial development.
And this would be only for new construction?
Correct.
So, quick
And no
question,
inspection.
Well, I was going to say, so if we're not going to have, and we've maintained throughout, inspections or the ability to enforce them, why is a Board of Appeals relevant?
Sure. Because, so say that we have a builder who calls the county and says, hey, I need to pull some building permits for these folks, and what are your building codes? And we tell him it's 2006, and he says, okay, that's great. But when he's out there and he's building, he comes across something and he says, hey, I can't complete this portion of it for whatever reason. And he calls our office and says, can we get a waiver on this particular section for whatever reason that may be? So the idea is, even if we're not going to send an inspector out there, we are expecting them to build to code. If for some reason there's a reason that they either can't or don't want to, then that needs to be documented. And if it's the event that it's a major deviation, I certainly don't want to be the one to grant that deviation. That's why we would need a board to appeal to.
I wonder how much delay in construction that would cause.
Well, I think it depends. It's very similar again to the Board of Zoning Appeals. We would have to have a set meeting date, every month. We'd probably be talking about 3 or 4 weeks. Of course, the hope would be that if this is something that is worth setting you back 3 or 4 weeks over, then maybe this is a pretty big deal. But otherwise, do you really want to be set back 3 or 4 weeks? Maybe we should go ahead and follow the code.
Right.
Crystal, how often does the Board of Zoning Appeals meet in a year?
Our Board of Zoning Appeals, which is also our Planning Commission, this last year we've had probably 8 variance requests, so probably 8 meetings.
8 meetings.
Yeah. But then there are other years when we have very few. We don't have any, or I don't want to say any, but 2 or 3 in the course of.
Are them special meetings, or you just meet after the Planning Commission?
For our Board of Zoning Appeals, we just meet after the
After Planning Commission, okay.
Yes.
So how would we make it known to the contractor community or people doing business in Leavenworth County that this had been implemented?
Well, the first thing we would need to do is obviously we would have a public hearing, and that would garner some attention, correct? We would also put it out on Facebook. We could run something in the newspaper. And then when you would be shocked at how many people call and say, hey, I want to build this structure. What are your building codes? So as people are obtaining their building permits, that's, we would update our permit application to state that, adherence to the 2006 codes is required. So there would be a bit of a learning curve, but we would get there just like with everything else.
If you're not going to get a building permit, you're not going to build a code, so. We're not going to solve that.
So if you build an addition to your home, would this apply to that?
So the addition, yes. We wouldn't retroactively say you have to go back in throughout the whole house and update everything. It would just be the addition.
Just the addition.
So I thought the conversations we've had was if it's roughly 50% or more, meaning if you have a 2,000 square foot home and you're adding 200 square feet, it's 10%. I mean, that doesn't fall into the.
So the 50%, that's for reconstruction. That's in the event that there's a fire or a damage. If you need to rebuild 50% or more of your structure, we're going to consider that a new building, not an addition or such. If the board does not want to go the direction of requiring it on additions, that's something that could be accommodated in the resolution. It's my understanding that typically it's not overly difficult if you're, say you're adding on to your kitchen or something, or adding on a bedroom. It's not typically very difficult to bring that section up to code. Sometimes it is. I mean, if you've got, a breaker box that was put in your house in 1942, you should probably update that anyway. But again, I'll take any direction from the board.
I think one thing to consider is that probably 90% of the builders already follow this code.
Correct.
Or something more stringent, depending upon where they're building anyways. And we've had a lot of the developers who support doing this because they build all their homes to code. And when they have to compete with somebody who's not building to code, there's a little bit of a cost variance. So the folks who are out there that are familiar with this and who are doing a lot of construction, this is no big deal to them because they're going to do it anyways. This is just kind of a protection thing for not only new construction, but what we ran into with the tornado, and that is that insurance companies, without this code in place, only have to bring it back to the condition it was before the loss. So it'd be true of a fire or a tornado. So if that house was built in the 60s, they just have to pay to bring it back to the condition that it was built in the 60s. If we have codes in place, the insurance company has to pay to bring it back to the current level of codes.
So now it costs the insurance company more to fix the house than it would have before.
I think they've made those changes over the last years to protect homeowners and to protect the other citizens too. It's not the
Right,
changes aren't necessarily arbitrary. It's just it does cost more to bring it back to code.
Well,
But
We
do you
gotta
want to
do
build your
sprinklers.
do you want to build your house to the 1960 standards when you rebuild it, or do you want to build it to? And most builders will only do it to the current code because they don't want to be left in the lurch if something happens where that homeowner comes against them. So then what happens is either the insurance company picks up the tab or the homeowner picks up the tab. Either way, it gets done.
well, if the insurance company picks up the tab, me and you are picking up the tab indirectly. So if the insurance paid to rebuild the house as it was without the code, what you're saying is now the insurance company's going to have to spend more.
Well, the good news is I heard that State Farm was giving back like $4 billion this year. So I hope you're not too worried about the insurance companies.
So,
Because I know I don't get my money's worth. I don't know about you, but
like,
That far.
businesses, churches, those are the ones in the tornado that were, the code said we had to have sprinklers. Before we didn't have sprinklers. Now the insurance company balks. So by adopting this, we're overcoming some of those issues.
Right,
If
yeah,
we
that
did
would-
have a tornado.
well, and that is what triggered most of this to begin with. So I don't think that's lost on anybody. My big concern is when you're talking about, again, the remodeling or additions, you're talking about all existing structures. And no matter what we say or think, there's going to be instances where they're out of code, and to try to get their house up to code in order to make that work, I think is unfair to the homeowner. I mean, this has been totally focused on new construction, not additions, and commercial as well, because there are more and more commercial installations that are happening in the county. And so when we think about it from a safety perspective, we know that commercial is dealing with, patrons, so that needs to be a focus. But on the residential side, on construction, we're saying, hey, we're sending first responders into buildings. It probably ought to meet a certain standard so that we can get our first responders out. Not to mention the person who resides there. So that would be my biggest concern. Per the meetings we've had, is I didn't realize the potential of addition or remodeling or any of those instances versus brand new construction. We're going somewhere where nothing existed before, and now something will exist after.
We can, like I said, if it's the consensus of this board, we can certainly write the resolution to reflect that.
Maybe use that 50% threshold that's a rebuild anyways.
Right.
So
Well, I know they do that in a lot of places and states where they call it a remodel as long as 50% of the structure remains intact. So literally there's places in California where they just leave 2 walls of the basement and redo the whole thing. I'm just saying it, wrong, right, or indifferent. That's how they've addressed those. Right.
Well, and if let's say we made this change and we didn't include additions, it wouldn't be, and then later we decided we wanted to add additions, that would be not
No,
too
we can
difficult
always
to do.
Right. Sure, we can always.
So,
update it.
this is a start. We've said all along that we're moving in a direction of this. I think what you're saying is moving to the 50% threshold. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. And as long as we don't have to add more staff to do inspections, and there's inspectors holding up projects and everything like that.
So, at least I would support doing what Commissioner Shimke's suggesting.
Okay. Any other questions, Crystal, on building codes?
I think to be clear, is there a consensus that we would use that 50% threshold, or we would require the?
To be built back to codes.
Is that? Just want to make sure.
That
What was that, Commissioner?
I agree with the 50% threshold.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else?
So the direction.
Bring that back to us then.
The direction will be for Crystal to schedule the public hearing on October 21st, to draft the resolution that's needed, to provide public notice in the newspaper as required, and then to begin the establishment of a Board of Appeals. That would be what's going to happen after today's meeting, if everybody is in agreement, or if there's a consensus.
You need a motion for that?
Should we formalize that?
Consensus.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on the motion that,
Mr. Mark.
okay. On building codes that was announced earlier. Any further discussion? And voting?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Mr. Potts, aye.
Okay. Like I said, as long as there's no inspections. You just sign it and it says you're building it to code.
I'll give it to you, because that resolution will have to contain it.
And I'm assuming we'll have great participation at that public hearing, so just want to make it clear that I do welcome all of that feedback,
Absolutely.
Yes.
both for and against. I mean, again, we hear from people trying to rebuild homes. We hear from builders. We don't always hear from all impacted parties, so
And we've heard from people who've purchased homes.
yeah, no doubt about that.
And we certainly heard a lot during the tornado.
Yeah.
So,
And definitely would encourage any of that feedback to be in writing via email to the commissioners and to the
Okay.
planning department so that we can keep track of all that if there is need.
Okay. All right.
All right,
All
thank
right.
you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Crystal.
Have a great day.
All right. Do we have anything other business before us?
Didn't we have a public comment before executive?
Yeah, but before we go to public comment, anybody got anything to report on?
we're having a neighborhood watch meeting out at High Prairie Point on Sunday.
Okay.
Citizen organized it, and
Okay.
I'm trying to get more patrols out that direction. So this will be, and also enhance security out there.
Okay.
So
All
invited
right.
me to attend that, so I'm looking forward to that.
All right.
Attended the Port Authority meeting with Jeff last week. I'm trying to remember if there was anything. LCDC's tomorrow. I'll be attending it as well. But
Okay.
Jeff, was there anything that was? I know we talked about federal prisons more.
This is Commissioner Potts. Who's attending LCDC tomorrow?
I'll be on the call. Commissioner Shimke.
Anyone else?
Anybody else want to join me? Feel free.
Is it when's LCDC gonna go to regular meetings again? Do you know? Have they said?
I haven't heard from them or the port, but I'll ask in the next few meetings.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
Has Mark talked about when they're going to do that at all?
I'll go ahead and participate if no one else is.
Okay. All right. And Commissioner Cause is September Suicide Awareness Month.
Yes, it is, and I would encourage everyone to, if you know anybody that is depressed or exhibiting any kind of signs and change in behavior, that you talk to them and let them know that you're there for them.
Okay.
We've lost several people this past month to suicide, and I think that it's something that we really need to focus on.
Okay. All right. I thought it was. I just want to make sure. And we'll get that message out there. All right. Anything?
Easton City moved their meeting to next week because of the holiday.
Okay.
That'll be next Monday.
Okay.
The Leavenworth County Suicide Prevention Coalition does have a Facebook page, and people can go to it to look for different resources and numbers and testing of capabilities and things. And it's Leavenworth County Suicide Prevention Coalition on Facebook.
Okay. It's a Facebook page. All right.
Oh, I did have one thing that's after the fact now, unfortunately, but Lansing put on their firework display on Friday last week. It was awesome. They did a really, really good job. So for anybody that maybe heard or might have been driving by or seeing it, but they did a great job.
And Basher's having their car show Saturday.
Yeah, I did see that.
On the 12th at the high school. So, all right, then we'll go on to our next public comment would be Mr. Hartshorn. You come there at the podium, there'd be fine.
I can't stand very long.
Okay, well then you can have a seat
I
there.
got a Parkinson and
All right, then have a seat.
okay, I'm here for a reason.
Could you state your name, please?
Oh, Gerald L. Hartshorn. You want my address?
Yes, please.
18218 246th Street, Tonganoxie, Kansas. Okay, I'm here for a reason that I believe I and several other people in this county has concerns about our road conditions. we've called. Well, let me get back. We used to have a man by the name of Chris Folsom that used to take care of our roads and the roads in our area. Did a very good job. And since that time, Chris got hurt. I assume all you people know that he got hurt, fell out of a tree. I live on 246th Street. We have not had a road grader or a load of rock. We have had the brush cutter coming up our road, and when I talked to the county yesterday, I asked them what an 18-inch brush hog costs, because that's all they cut was 18 inches from the roadway. And she told me the county was not worried about the road conditions. They're worried about their rock, what do they call it, Chatham Rock?
Oh, chip seal?
Chip seal in this county. And I think on the way up here today, I was thinking about starting an organization, a nonprofit, for the concerned citizens of this county. And we have a lot of concerned citizens, just like I wanted to ask a question a few minutes ago. I've never been to your meetings. But none of you guys, not one of you, and I held my hand up because I didn't want to interrupt your little meeting. And I don't know if this is a full-time job for you guys, a part-time job for you guys, but how many times have you drove your county, or your section of the county?
You talking to me?
Well, I pointed right at you. You've never been in your county.
Not correct, sir. I've been to almost every house in Tonganoxie Township last month.
When?
Last month, almost every house. So,
I don't believe
I have been up and down. You can believe me or not believe me, sir, but really that's not the issue. I am concerned about your road situation, and I would have been happy to talk to you if you would have called me.
You put your telephone number in the telephone book. You don't have to put your personal home telephone number.
I have a Facebook page, has my telephone number, and here at the office they have my telephone
I
number.
don't get on Facebook very often, but
No, but I just want you to know we are concerned about your roads, and we have been working. And I don't know if you visited with Mr. Knoll, but we've been working on a lot of these roads. I'm concerned when we don't get it addressed, and we want to address it. So that's what the concern
and if I call your office, I expect you to return my call. I respect you. Or I feel that you ought to give me enough respect to call me back.
Absolutely. You deserve that respect, and I call everybody
And
back.
for 9 months, we've been trying to do that.
I haven't received a call from you once.
No, I called for my last time. That was yesterday.
I have not
just
received
found
a call
out,
from
I
you.
talked to, wait a minute. It's my turn to talk.
Okay, sir. But you were
Okay,
addressing
I
the
just
call.
talked to one of your county commissioners. And they asked what I was here for. My wife called me when I was outside talking to the medical guy. And she said, they're out here grading. They're out putting rock on the road because you went to the county commissioners. That's bullshit. They knew I was coming here. And I don't know who in this room is my county commissioner. I've never had a county commissioner. I've lived in this county for 49 years. I've never had one come to my house. That's why I'm calling you. You're mistaken, not a liar. You haven't been to every house. You haven't even been down on the road.
Your time's up, Mr.
Okay.
Hartshorn.
Okay.
All right.
But are we going to get it done, or do we have to go another way, or what are we going to do?
Can I give you my phone number and you can talk to me?
Yeah, I don't know where you've been calling, but hopefully we can help to solve that. I will share with you that that's probably one of the most active commissioners you'll ever run
Okay,
into. So.
I understand that you guys have a tough job. I've known Doug for a long time. And he's been a pretty fair with everybody in the county, I think.
Well, I hope I have been.
I think now. I don't know, there's a set.
All right.
But I've talked to a lot of people. They're concerned about the county. And I said I would come up here and talk today. I didn't know how long I could talk.
Yeah.
But
I
I appreciate you guys.
That's one quick question. When did you say the last time a grader was down your road?
Do what now?
When did you say the last time a grader was down your road? Besides today, evidently. But how long ago was the last time a grader
The
was
last
down your road?
time, I'm retired, so my road's only about 1.25 miles long, or 1.5 miles. We have not seen a road grader
Since how long?
since Chris Folsom got hurt.
How long ago was that?
Well, I don't know.
In the summertime?
Roughly.
In the summertime?
Just
Or is it in the?
last year? So you haven't had a grader down your road for
No.
a year?
Now, they did grade the snow,
Okay. So
but besides grading the snow, no, they haven't been down there.
okay. We'll make sure that.
I mean, I grade all the way to the road anyhow.
Okay. We'll make sure that we get that taken care of.
And another thing I was talking about, the neighbors have to park at my house in the wintertime, and I take them to the top of the hills
Okay.
out there at the old Graves place. And I don't know how long you guys have been in the county. But that's ridiculous. If you're paying taxes in this county, your road ought to be suitable to go up.
You call me and we'll get together with that gentleman over there and we'll have Mr. Knoll, we'll have a conversation down in
Okay.
Public Works.
That'll be fine.
Will that work?
Okay, do you want me to come up here, or?
Well, just call me and we'll set it up.
Okay.
Mr. Knoll.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone
you.
else? Thank you, Mr. Hartshorn.
All right, thank you. Hey, I appreciate you guys listening to me.
All
I
right.
get a little carried away sometimes.
Well, now you got Mike's number, but in the future, if you have a problem, feel free to call Doug. Sounds like you already had his.
I used to be a legislative rep for United Transportation, so I know that I can go farther than the city.
Were you a railroader?
Yes.
What'd you do?
41 years, 41 and a half.
Conductor, engineer?
I was a conductor.
I'm an engineer.
Well, really.
So, you know conductors and engineers. You know how conductors and engineers get along.
Conductor's the boss. The engineer is just,
We'll talk.
okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Anything else before we go to an executive session? Then I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move this board recess from open session, go into closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel justified by KSA 75-4319B1 and to protect the privacy interests of the persons involved, and that this board resume open session in the meeting room at, how long we need?
10, 15 minutes.
10
minutes.
10:15? Resume at 10:15. Present in executive session will be Commissioners Culberson, Cos, Smith, Shimke, Steben, County Administrator Mark Lawfrey, Senior County Councilor Dave Van Paris.
Second.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Oh, okay. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting.
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cobb votes aye.
All right. Let the record show we return to regular session from executive session. No decisions were made. Discussion was limited to non-elected personnel. Have any other business for the board at this time? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb votes aye.
All right, thank you.